Hi everyone, we're going to go ahead and go through some of the problems that you could possibly see on the test. And I wanted to make sure that you understand how to be able to do some of these. So it's probably a good idea to take some notes, make sure that you are set, make sure that you are ready. So first off, how many possible real solutions are there for this particular equation? So anytime you're looking for real solutions, and actually this is mostly really positive real solutions. I apologize for that because that should be positive, not just real solutions, but positive real solutions. We just look at the functions. So we look here, this is a plus sign here. So we see one sign change, two sign changes, three sign changes, four sign changes, and that's it. So for this particular function, we would have four sign changes. So that tells me that we could have four positive real numbers, we could have two positive real numbers, and we could have zero positive real numbers. So these are all the possible solutions. So this doesn't mean that this is exactly what they are, but these are all the possibilities that we have when we're looking for these. So 4, 2, or 0 would be it. Remember that we have four, and notice in this particular case that we have 5 total solutions. So that's giving me some information here when I'm kind of going through this, that if I have 4 solutions, that means one of them has to be a negative solution. If I have 2, then we have 3 solutions. So what if I were to actually look at the negative solutions, remember we plug in a negative number for the x there. And so if I were to plug in a negative in there, that would give me negative 6x to the 5th minus 2x to the 4th, because the sign doesn't change, minus 3x cubed minus 2x squared, minus x, and plus 1. And notice that we have one sign change. So that means we have one negative real solution. And so we either have one negative real solution with 4 positive real solutions. That would give me 5. We have one negative real solution with 2 positive real solutions plus 2 complex solutions. Complex solutions always come in pairs. And then we have one negative real solution with no positive real solutions, which means we have 4 complex solutions. So again, those always come in pairs, so always subtracting 2. This was explained in class. If you don't understand this, you should go back and review the video on this one. Okay, so solving by Desmos. So this one has x to the 4th plus 2x squared equals 3x to the 3rd. Anytime we're going into Desmos and we're working with Desmos, we always want to put everything on one side, set it to f of x. So if we go over to the screen, let's see if I can get over to the screen there. So there's Desmos. So for the first problem, well, for the second problem, here it is. So if I have this here, I can easily see that we have, in this particular case, we have 0 is one of my solutions, 1 is one of my solutions, and 2 is one of my solutions. So in this particular case, we have 3 solutions that are sitting up here. So we have 2, 0, and 1. Because we have 3 solutions and we basically are supposed to have 4, one of these is a repeat solution. So whenever we're looking at this, we know that we have a repeated solution, and then 0 is my repeated solution. How can I tell that? Because if I were to factor out an x squared out of here, because everything has an x squared in it, that means that I have 2 x equals 0 values. Remember, we talked about repeated multiplicity in the last section that we were working on. So that will explain that part of it. So solving on Desmos, again, we see it's 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so solving this one. So now having to solve this one, notice, of course, we have x to the 4th. We always set our y equal to whatever that middle variable is. So we set y equal to x squared. And so we have y squared, because of course this is y squared equals x to the 4th. Y squared minus 7y minus 18 equals 0. This is not a difference, I'm sorry, not a perfect square. It is a table problem. Why do I know it's a table problem? Because of the 1 in front of the y squared. So we have a table. So we put the negative 18, figure out that The negative with the 18 tells me the signs are different. The negative in front of the 7 tells me that the larger number is negative. So this is how I'm going to write them out. So of course we have 1 and 18, 2 and 9, and we can see that these two numbers here add up to negative 7. So that means that we have y plus 2 times y minus 9, and we go back and resubstitute in. Excuse me. We see that y is equal to x squared, so we have x squared plus 2 and x squared minus 9. And obviously we can factor this one down to x minus 3 times x plus 3. So there are two of my solutions, x equals 3 and negative 3. And then for this one here, that gives me x squared equals negative 2. If I were to solve for that, I end up with x equals plus or minus the square root, I times the square root of 2. And that's how we would solve it. So again, these are just review problems, so we went over them. I'm not going to go into much more detail because I've gone over these types of problems multiple times in class and, of course, on the videos. Okay, so the next one, which is number 4, we have x to the third minus 2x squared plus 4x minus 8. And in this case now, I'm going to go over to Desmos. So if you have access to Desmos, of course, you can use that. So that's this one right here. And notice this one I did as well, so I kind of put this up here as well. But you'll notice in this particular case, I can kind of see that we have, in this case, just one solution. So I know that one in this particular case. So I know that 2 is definitely a solution. So if I go back over here and it says that I have to solve it, remember that we know that x equals 2, which means that one of the factors, excuse me, is x minus 2. And then how do I figure out what is left over? Well, that's where we use synthetic division. So we go in here and we put in 2, that comes from here. And we have 1, negative 2, 4, and negative 8. Bring down the 1, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, and add. And notice that we know that 2 is 1. So then this factors down to, in this particular case, x squared plus 4. So right now we have x minus 2 times x squared plus 4. So we know for sure x equals 2 is one of the values. We saw that on the graph. The other two are in this particular case, x squared equals negative 4. That is x equals plus or minus the square root of negative 4, which means that x equals plus or minus 2i. And again, same thing, kind of similar to the other one, and so on. Okay, synthetic substitution. So in this case, we have f of x equals 0.21x cubed minus 3.52x squared plus 25.46x. If the year 2000 is the first year, what is the value in 2007? Well, that means that x equals 7. So what we want to do is we want to find f of 7. So, of course, the fastest way to do it, go over to Desmos, type in the function exactly as it is. So this one right here. So we can see that if I type it in here, I'm given f of x equals 0.21 minus 3.52, and I want to find f of 7. And of course, it gives me an answer here of 77.77. So I've got the answer. So I know what that particular problem is. I'm going to get this out of the way a little bit, just so that we're over here, so we can see all these particular problems as well. Okay, going back. So that takes care of number 5. Number 6, is x minus 6 a factor of this value? Well, how do we determine that? Well, what we do is we go in, type this into the computer. Sometimes my pen doesn't work when I'm doing this, so hang on. Got to figure this out, why it's not working. And let me just pause the video for a second to get this to work. Hang on 1 second. Okay, let's try this again. I'm going back over. Let's see if it works this time. I think I got it working. So what we want to do is we want to find, of course, x minus 6 is a factor. So that means that x equals 6 because we solve it, set it equal to 0 and solve it. So we want to find f of 6. So all I have to do is type that in. Synthetic division, substitution just tells me that I need to find, in this particular case here is my function, I believe. It's the problem we're working on. I just want to make sure, yeah, it's the problem we're working on. And so what I want to do down here is I'm going to go in and type in F6 of 6 equals 0. So is it a factor? If it's equal to 0, it's a factor. If it's not equal to 0, it's not a factor. So in this particular case, it is a factor. So is it a factor? Yes. Yes, it is. Sorry, my pen doesn't work too nicely on here. So find the factors of 8x cubed plus 27. This is a perfect addition of cubes. So that would be 2x times 2x times 2x and 3 times 3 times 3. The rule is 2x plus 3. Why is it plus? Because that's plus. And then 2x squared. So it's supposed to be this. It's supposed to be 2x squared, which is this one right here. So that is 4x squared. And then we have multiply these two together. So plus 6x, I'm sorry, minus 6x. And the reason why it's minus sign is because it's the opposite of this one. And then we have plus 9. And there it is factored. And you can't go any further than that. This you can use the quadratic formula. So if they are asking you for some information, you can type that into the quadratic formula. Remember that this is always going to turn out to be a complex number. So sometimes if you only have a choice of complex numbers on the answer key, then you can just pick that one. Okay, what is the graph that goes through the points x equals -2 and x equals 3? Then that tells me that we have an x plus 2 and an x minus 3. If I were to go and graph that, I could figure it out, but also I could FOIL this, so I have to multiply it together because the answer may not be written out this way. So I might have x squared, which is these two. I have plus 2x minus 3x and minus 6. So that's foiling it, or you could do the box method. So that would be x squared minus x minus 6. So this would be the equation if we were looking for that. So that would be the one that we were looking for as well. And I think I might have done that. Yeah, I did. And so if we look at that particular equation here, we can see that this function goes through -2 and +3. But of course, remember that once you type in this, it may not be written this way, and you can always type in the right equation if that's what you want to do. So I could actually see if this looks exactly the same by writing down another equation. So I could do F8 of x, which I think it's actually F8, equals x squared. And I think we said minus x minus 6. And you will notice if I turn that off, let me make this a different color, make it black. So we can see if I turn it off, we can see the black line. If I turn it on, it just overwrites it. So that means it's the exact same line. So we know that these two functions are exactly the same. So that can help me make sure that you're using Desmos. I know this was quick. You can always stop the videos, go back and review them. And if you have more questions, you'll have a chance before the test to ask some of those just before the test. But remember that you're going to have a paper part, which will have a little bit of stuff that you have to try to do, probably some easy factoring. And then you'll have the online test that you will also have to complete. And you will need to complete that within the time frame of the class on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on which day you will be in the class this week.